Hi, everyone. Welcome to Basic Binges, part of Knob Talk Network. On this show, we review popular shows that are out now while eating and drinking our favorite snack and drink. I'm your host, Erric Ramirez, and right now I am enjoying a lovely blue moon because they're delicious. And I had a Halloween party this weekend, so I'm eating the leftover candy because we had a lot. But I'm excited to introduce to you our guests for our lovely show. Our journey has come to an end. Jordyn and Julia. Jordyn, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jordyn Orozco, and this is bittersweet for me because I'm so sad it ended. I loved being a part of this adventure. Right now, I'm having a lovely little Mai Tai in my little Yeti, and then I made some stovetop mac and cheese. So I'm just kind of like chomping on that.
Nice.
Ooh, lovely, lovely. And then Julie, go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody out there.
Oh yes. Hello, I'm Julie Raelyn, and tonight I don't know if y'all love to go to Trader Joe's during the fall time and just partake of all of their fall offerings, and especially if there's something new that I haven't tried, I'm trying the spicy pumpkin samosas tonight. I'm hoping they're not too spicy. I know, right?
That sounds so good.
Yeah. And then I've just got some vegan caramelized onion dip and crackers because that seemed like a good thing to balance it out. And I am drinking oat milk because I wasn't sure how spicy the samosas were because I'm kind of a wimp when it comes to spice. And then some water, of course. And yes, I'm also happy to be here for the end of this Rings of Power journey. I've enjoyed the time that we've gotten to talk about it, and I'm sad that it's gone too, but there'll be another season. So
Yes,
There better be.
There better
yeah, well,
be.
Supposedly, right? Didn't they already like sign?
Supposedly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Amazon, so he's paying for it, so it's going to be
Right.
a thing. But thank you guys for joining me. Real quick, we're going to jump into the chat. Cue ball. Evening all. Q in the house, and I ate some homemade chicken and noodle with crackers and tater tots, and just drinking some apple juice right now. Well, welcome to you. We love that you come on our journeys with us, and thank you for being here. But now mentioning that tonight, what we are talking about is Rings of Power episodes 7 and 8, the finale of the first season of Rings of Power, which was a whirlwind, and I think we can all agree upon that.
Mhm.
So we're going to just jump right in because we have a lot to talk about this episode. So last episode, how we ended off, the mountain exploded and took out the town, the Southlands, and everybody's running, burning up and everything. And so that's where we enter. Everything's red, covered in ash. There's fire. And there's just chaos everywhere. Pretty much just volcano exploding destroyed the army that was in the Southlands that came from Numenor. What did you guys think about this opening? Did you think that it played a good part in like transitioning the show into a little bit more darker theme? What did you think, Jordyn?
So I the previous episodes, episode 6, I was like, I need to see the trailer. And usually I don't watch the trailer on like the next episode because I'm like, I just want to be surprised. But after that, like major cliffhanger, I was like, I need to watch the trailer. So obviously we can see that Galadriel survived. And the whole town is just eviscerated, right? And you're left wondering how people get out of there, right? So when we first got into this episode, it was very confusing. You kind of get immersed into the scene where you're like kind of a part of it. You don't know what's going on, right? There's all these people. Galadriel finds Theo and it's like, you stick with me, like I'll help you. And then we have the Queen Regent who's like trying to get people out. And then we have just like utter chaos in this small town. So I think it was a good, like, I knew what it was going to be before it was kind of like at the end of this episode, like what we found out like this land was going to be. And so it was just interesting to sort of see how it came to be and why it sort of happened. So I thought it was a really good introduction to sort of how the rest of the episode and the rest of episode 8 sort of played out, because it gets very dark very quickly, and you have very few rays of hope within these 2 episodes, and I think for a good reason. And so I think it was a really good, introduction to the rest of the entire episode in episode 8.
I completely agree. Julie, what are your thoughts on the beginning of this like chaos?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, well, I think I mentioned on our last episode that like I could feel just things getting darker. And then this was definitely, like you said, a transition into even more of that. Like, okay, we're setting the tone for like the rest of what's gonna happen now, which yeah, makes sense because I mean, like it turns into freaking Mordor. So like that's hella dark, like um and yeah, I mean, I liked it because like I was like kind of anxious, like, okay, who survived, like who's here and who's not. And just like, wondering what they're gonna where they're gonna go from there, because that's kind of like shoot, like literally everybody's plans were destroyed for anything. And like they kind of the Southlanders kind of have to just rebuild. And so yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, that was the tone. It was like, what's gonna happen next?
Oh yeah, no, and we jumped back into that a couple of more times, but I felt like it was a great starter, and just like, oh, we're in the mess now.
Yeah.
But to lighten it up a little bit, we go from them, and Julie, I know you love them. We're going to talk about the Harfoots.
Okay.
We do see that the Harfoots are on their journey, and they finally make it to their place, their destination, one of their stopping points, so they can get their supplies and everything and rest a little bit. And they get magma balls from the volcano that just blew up. And they say that the great grandfather said that if that happens, a great evil's coming. That's when that happens. He mentions that. And so they're trying to pick up the scavengers of everything because a lot of it's burnt. And this is where my issue comes in with the Harfoots. Just to explain, they asked the stranger to fix this for them because they know he has power. They ask him to fix it for them, and then the little girl almost gets hurt because she walks up a little bit, and then they turn on him and pretty much exile him from the camp because it didn't turn out the way they wanted. What do you think about like this whole area and like kind of the turn that the Harfoots are having with the stranger? Jolie, we'll start with you on this
one. Yeah. Oh, well, I know. Well, I feel like it's happened a couple of times. Like, I feel like they've been so hot and cold with the stranger, like, because he's done some things that could have almost hurt them, but then it kind of ends up saving them in the long run. And we see later on that it does end up saving them, like, because he did fix it. But like, yeah, I think right now, because he doesn't know like almost the strength of his own powers, like even he's like scared that he's gonna hurt someone. That's why he tells like Nori to kind of go away. Like, and yeah, it's interesting. And like, yeah, there's a lot of foreshadowing there, like a lot of like just definitely like they like, so the evil from the volcano reaches even all the way where they are, and it's like, oh, okay, this is gonna touch like all of the land, like, so how is each one going to be affected? And then also, because we know, I'm actually curious, because we know, I mean, maybe I'm getting too ahead of myself here, but because we know that the hobbits descended from the Harfoots or whatever, that means that somewhere along the line the Harfoots probably became extinct. I don't know. So then I'm all like worried, like what's going to happen to them. But yeah, it was definitely like an interesting thing, like their relationship with the stranger, like, it's kind of like a love-hate relationship at first, at least.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Plus also like the relationship of like when they're traveling and they're like, well, if somebody gets left behind, they're done, we'll mourn them later, which we've talked about before. That's kind of my issue with the Harfoots, because we, like you said, they're the ancestors of the hobbits, so we've seen the hobbits be different than what they are now. So I think that's what they're aggravating for me, for them. Jordyn, what did you think about all of this?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm kind of glad this kind of happened. I kind of saw it coming with, especially with the stranger, because of what happened with Nori and the whole freezing incident. And then this was going to happen again, and they are like, oh, like, he can't control his power and they don't understand why. But and so in response, they exile him because of fear, right? Like they don't want him around. And what they don't realize is that he actually fixed the entire problem and gave them a bountiful full of apples and all this other wonderful things that happened to them. And I kind of feel like later on in the episode, when 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 Nori decides I'm not going with you, like I need to find him, like I need to help him, especially after they encounter the cult of Sauron, right? They they sort of switch, and then they say, yeah, he needs help, like I'll go with you. um I think what I don't know, like it for me, it kind of was, I don't want to say necessary, but it was kind of a turning point for this story for me, because I was like, for the entire series, I was like, okay, when's this story going to pick up? When's this story going to pick up? Right? We have Numenor, we have Galadriel, we have, the Southlands, we have all these things happening, right? And we have all these theories. And then I was like, when is this going to be a thing? And I think this was the turning point, for sort of like the Hardfoot story. And so I feel like it was almost necessary for the plot. And then it sort of just started to get better, for me at least, for these lovely individuals from this point.
Oh, I definitely agree with you on that. From seeing them with this, it gave them more character than I've seen throughout the entire rest of the season. You felt the heart, you felt the anger, you felt the greed with, like, after the vegetables came back and everything, how they were just like grabbing and taking. And I'm just like, okay, so you're building this up a little bit more. I hope to see more of them second season, that building more. So we'll see. But now we're going to touch on some of my favorite characters, and actually one of my favorite scenes in this 2 episodes. We're going to go to when King Durin tells Elrond and Durin that he's not going to help the elves get the mithril, because, as he says, their time is done, and he's just not going to help them. And then we see Disa talking to Durin and like convincing him, like, you're going to be king one day. That's our mithril. Like, your dad's just going to have to pretty much suck it, and we're going to do it anyway. I just like the whole moment, and when Elrond comes in, and the emotion that Durin has against or for him, it's just so touching. I loved it. Jordyn, I know this is one of your favorite parts too. What do you think?
So the entire bromance of Durin and Elrond throughout this entire series is, I'm not one for the whole term of like hypermasculinity and like, like bromances and all that shit. But this is a very specific relationship between two friends that genuinely want to help one another out, but are torn by political circumstances from their families or from the race that they're in, and are tied, right? Like, these are two people with really good hearts that want to do that. I think it was, and I think it's also, well, we'll talk about this in episode 8. But I, for me, this has been one of the staples of this entire series for me, is the relationship between Elrond and Durin, because they both help each other out in a way where it progresses both of their races. But the people that are outside of, obviously, them two cannot see it, besides Disa and besides, like maybe some people that are connected to Elrond, right? And I think it was definitely necessary. You can genuinely see the heartbreak in Durin when he's like, I can't help you. And like, we're convinced that Durin is accepting the fact that Elrond's going to die eventually, right? Or like go away forever and never return. And this hurts him to a point where he's like, I don't know what to do. And then that's when Disa's like, nah, bitch, like, it's yours. Like, you're going to take it. Fuck this fool. Like, you have to, do all this stuff. And then obviously we get that scene later on with Durin and his father, where he is then sort of like exiled from the royal line.
Yeah,
and
actually coming up on that here shortly.
yeah. And so, and that was so freaking heavy for me. Like, I was sitting there watching it and I was like, holy shit. Like, it's a father who's like, I was proud of you from like the first day that, you know, you were born, but then now like you're speaking against your king, but I'm also your father and I'm extremely disappointed in you. I get that aspect of it, but then also I was like rooting for Durin. I was like, fuck yeah, like you need to
Well,
talk back to him.
even when
Yeah.
Jordyn was just like, he's my brother, and like set the king
Yeah,
off. I was like,
right. And
okay,
the king
go
was
Jordyn.
like, how dare you, blah blah. And I was like, you know what, bro? Like get with it. But I think going back to Elrond and Durin, I think this was probably the writers did a really good job with these two. The writers just like went for it, and you kind of see sort of the humanity in both of them. I know they're not human, right? But you kind of sort of see how they genuinely care for each other, and how Durin's family genuinely cares for Elrond, right? And how they will do anything to help him out in this instance.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Some of my favorite things throughout the season actually has been the Durin, Elrond, Disa scenes, just because they are so like the scene where with the whole table where he was just like, "Oh, these are sacred," and stuff. They're just so well written. I think the writers were just like, "We're going to give these people a lot," and because we know they can handle it. They're my favorite scenes. Joey, what did you think about this whole conversation and the heartbreak and the
Oh
realization?
yeah, no, I was heartbroken too, because yeah, you feel Durin's heartbreak. But no, I agree. Like they've been some of my favorite characters throughout this whole thing too. I mean, obviously, yes, we said established I love the Harfoots, but I think up there is also Durin and Elrond, because yeah, it is. It's such a great friendship, and like they've clearly like it stood the test of time, because how many hundreds of, well, I don't know how many whatever years it's been since Elrond came back to see him, so obviously like it's been a long time. And yeah, the father thing broke my heart, and I agree with what Jordyn was saying about like the father kind of goes back on what he was saying earlier about he was proud, because that was such a nice moment where he like before where he said he was really proud of Durin, and now this is like the opposite, saying like he's not proud of him and he's disowning him basically. And it's like, what, man, come on, like come on, cut the guy some slack, like he's trying to help his friend. And I don't know. The king's just, I guess he's just a little too proud or something. And that makes me sad, because I feel like I really liked what you said, Jordyn, about like how the between Elrond and Durin, like they've found the ways that could really benefit each other, not just themselves, but the whole races. And they're really trying to make progress. And then there's like the elders of each race that are like, no, like we don't want to make this kind of progress. And yeah, which of course is always frustrating to watch, because you just like want them to, you just want everybody to love each other, like so yeah, it was some good scenes. Those are some great actors. Yeah, and my girl Disa, like she just spewing logic for days.
Yep.
Days. Every time Deuce is on screen, I'm just like, ooh, let's listen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
She could say
I
a lot.
love her.
I'm just like, oh, that was great.
Yeah. Like she said exactly what needed to be said in that moment. Like,
And that's what I think about why Disa is my favorite character. She's so grounded and so like her convictions are on point, and she's just like, nope,
Yeah.
this is the right thing to do, and I'm going to let you know this is the right thing to do.
it's almost
And
like she can see what others can't. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, the perception is there.
I love her. I love her. I love that whole scene. But we're gonna jump a little bit because we're gonna go back to Mordor, which is Mordor now. And we discover that Isildur is dead, which we all know that he's not, because
Hey, Dad.
Right.
because
Yeah.
we
I was
know, we
like,
know the story.
oh man.
But we at this point do think he's dead. So his father is extremely heartbroken, and he has a change of mind and them being in Middle Earth at this point. And we also discover that the Queen Regent herself, when she was trying to save people who ran into that room, became blinded. So she has no idea what is going on. She has to keep asking, which I did find very sad when she was just like, just tie my horse to a tree and leave me. Like, and
Yeah.
like the people will understand, just leave me. And they're just like, no, like you were there fighting, which I give a lot to her. She's right in the thick of it, just being like, nope, we're going. We're going to do this. I'm going to help you. Get up. Let's go. What were your feelings on this when we discovered that she's blind and how it may affect her future as the Queen Regent, especially when they get back to Numenor and everything like that? How did you feel about these two and kind of the realization that their perspectives and her eyesight and his no longer wanting to be here has changed? We'll start with you, Joy.
Well, it's just a lot. It was a lot. Like, I don't know that I was expecting that to happen. And then, I don't know. It's interesting because it made her want to fight more fiercely. She's like, oh no, we will be back. This is not finished. Like, we are going to demolish this enemy. And then for, Elendil, like, he was like, oh no, that was my last straw. They killed my son. Like, I'm done. Like, what? And he kind of thinks the queen is like a little crazy for doing that. And actually, that's kind of where I was going to go with this. Is I think that I'm worried that people are going to start to not trust her. Because not only did all of this craziness happen, but now she's blind too. And I mean, like, that's obviously not her fault, but you know how people are cruel, and Numenorians are not nice people. Let me just say, this is what I've decided throughout this show. The Numenorians are not, most of them are not people that I would want to hang out with. Anyway, so people are cruel, and I'm just worried they're going to use that against her. And like, I don't know, maybe there'll be like a mutiny of some sort, but we already know that Numenor is gonna fall anyway because of the visions Numenor and what
goes away.
What's that?
Numenor does end up getting destroyed.
Right. So like, I'm just wondering, like, where we are on that timeline. So I'm like, is something gonna happen to the queen before then, or I don't know. So it'll be interesting. I would love to see like them go back to Middle Earth, but I think it's going to be hard for her at this point to convince them to follow her again after all of that, So, yeah.
Jordyn, what did you think about all of this and the Queen Regent saying that they will go back to Middle Earth because they are there for the fight?
So I've been Team Galadriel from jump, like from episode 1. I'm like, whatever Galadriel says is law, right? And the fact that she told Arondir, or she told one of them, she said she's not going to hold her promise, like, but and we have to prepare if that happens. And when she said that, I was like, I already knew, like, from the beginning, or from when the Queen Regent was like, no, we're coming back, like, we're fighting. And then she was talking to Galadriel and all that stuff, and then her captain was seen crying, right? Like, because he just lost his son. He's like, I'm not doing, like, you could clearly see, he's like, I'm not doing this again. Also, too, the fact that I don't know who he is, the old guy that looks like Little John, and
I think he looks like a cat, like the
yes,
bad guy cat from like All Dogs Go to Heaven.
He looks like Little John in the Kevin Costner version of Robin Hood.
Are we talking about the Pharazôn?
Yes, he looks like that too. And we already know that, like, he's planning to just overthrow the queen and overthrow the monarchy to sort of like take back Numenor to its people. And so I think that, the Queen Regent coming back blind might be a reason for him to be like, yeah, she can't lead you. Like, so I have to be the one to do it. And now with the king dead, right? Yeah. Like, it's gonna be crazy. And that's a freaking scene, right? Where he's like lucid for like a good like 5 minutes and tells Isildur's sister, like, you gotta fucking see in the Palantir, right? And we don't even see that scene yet, right? So, but we do know that Numenor does get destroyed, right? And so I think, I knew she was blind when she was being led by the soldier back to sort of like the horse. I was like, oh shit, like she lost her vision. Like I kind of could tell. And then just the fact that there was that scene with her and the captain on the boat where I was like, is this like a love thing? Or is this just like
Yeah,
we highly respect one another?
I
And
was kind of
see,
wondering that too.
that's what I thought too, because like Isildur and all of them, they become royalty. So did they just come kind of get this like love relationship when they go back to Middle Earth and get
Yeah.
married, and that's why he became king and everything?
I don't
I
know.
mean,
Like
we'll
it
learn.
was
We'll learn.
it was a little too meet cute for me where I was like, huh, like what's going on here? So yeah, it was definitely a shocker, but also too, it was definitely revealing that trouble is coming to Numenor, and you know, the calls coming from within the house, right? And so I think that we're gonna see that in the next season at least.
Yes, I'm excited to see that vision come to reality because, like you said, the people of Numenor are kind of shit people. So, uh,
Really are.
but moving no, they truly are. They are despicable. Just because, and I watched the 3 minute Similarian thing again. It's like they're mad because they can't go to the everlasting land where people live forever because they're human and they can't. So that's why
Right.
they're mad as well. One of the things. But Jordyn brought this up earlier. We are going to talk about, as you well phrased this, because I was calling them something different, the cult of Sauron. We meet them, and they go and they kind of bully the Harfoots into telling him where the stranger was, because they want him for their evil own doings, and they destroy the entire caravan with fire and everything, which is really another scene of the Harfoots that I appreciated. Put a fire under their butts to be like, no, he needs help. We are
Yeah.
going to go help him. So that's when Sardak and Poppy and Marigold and all of them go and save the stranger because they realized he did help us out, and in turn, we do have to help them out. So that was a very good and lovely moment for them, and this is where it really started to grow on me, because they're growing a backbone, and it's not fair that the cult of Sauron did this. What did you guys think of that scene and how like dark it was? Julie, since you love Harfoots, I'm going to start with you every time.
I was mad. I was so mad. I was like, oh, I do not like whoever, like, I didn't know who they were yet, but I was like, I don't like these bitches. Like, they're evil. They're evil looking and they're just evil. And yeah, I was just like, I didn't know like what their powers were really. I think until they did that, I'm like, oh wow, they can just take fire and like bend it at their will. And I was like, oh crap. And then I was just like sad because I was like, they worked so hard on those little like huts and whatever. But I mean, I will say for the Harfoots, they are a resilient bunch, and you know they didn't let that stop them. They're like, okay, we're just gonna. I mean, they had that little detour where they went to help the stranger, and yeah, I guess you're right. Maybe that did need to happen for them to finally see like, okay, this guy helped us and he's in trouble. Like, we need to help him because there's a bigger evil out there that we need to be worried about and stuff like that, you know? But yeah, after all of that happened, they just kind of went and packed their stuff up and said, all right, let's keep on moving. So I was like, respect for that because their resilience is like, but yeah, no, that was crazy. I was like, I don't know. The whole scene though, like where they were finally like, let's go help him. It was touching. I was like, aw, like they're finally taking a liking to him. I was like, good, because it's probably Gandalf and he's only gonna keep helping you in the future. So
The one that surprised me the most was Sardak.
oh
So he was
yeah.
like, I'm going with you guys too. And I was just like, weren't you the
Yeah.
one against him the most?
Yeah.
I know. No, it was a nice turn. It was a nice turn of like a change of heart for like all of them, especially Sadek. Yeah, because I wasn't expecting that. Like I thought it was just gonna be like the family, and then he's like, "No, I'll go with you," and I was like, "Oh."
Jordan, how did you feel about all of this with the cults and the fire and them banding together to go save the stranger?
Yeah, I thought it was definitely a methodical play because we get introduced to them and then it's like for like 2 seconds and then we're like, who the fuck are you? Right? Like, who are you? Why are you smelling the ground? And then all of a sudden they can do certain things, right? And we sort of see that, especially in the latter episode where one of them can shapeshift and also like shapeshift fire and like use that to her advantage. One of them is really good with knives, the other one is really good at leading, who knows, but I think for me, yeah, this scene definitely was like, you fucking assholes, right? Like you didn't need to burn all of this, you just did. But I
Yeah.
looked at it in a different light where they were trying to destroy what this individual was creating,
Mm.
and in order to do that, they destroyed like all of the bounty that this person gave them. And it like I do see like for sure that they were for sure bullying these people, but at the same time I was like, why are they destroying everything that this person created, right? Like, are they trying to say that creation and these things are like a gift of the light or something that he doesn't know that he's doing? And so um it was really awesome to see that, I thought Nori wasn't going to go at all, period. And then she put on the satchel and her mom was like, where are you going? And she's like, I have to go help him. Like, I have to go warn him of these people because they're going to kill him.
Yeah.
And Nori essentially believes that this guy is ultimately good, right? Even after all the shit, right, that happened to him. And then just to see that, the family and then definitely the great grandfather who was like, all right, like I gotta do my job. Like I gotta do all that
Mhm.
to do that. And so for me, it was definitely one of those points where I was like, yes, go. I was like, go, hurry. I was like, get to him before them and all that stuff. And then obviously, they get to him kind of too late, but not too late. So but it was definitely one of those things where I was like invested in their story and I wanted to definitely see more and what would come out of it. So there was a minute when I was like, maybe it is Sauron. I was like, fuck, was I wrong? And then the entire
Mm-hmm.
time I was like, I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. These bitches are wrong. And then,
Oh, I
yeah,
was
I felt
definitely.
the same way.
I was like, shit.
I was questioning. I was like, he can't be. He can't be because
Yeah.
there's no way that Sauron would have even an inkling of good in him. That's what I thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, I didn't
Um,
think he was Sauron. I thought he was the necromancer, maybe. Or Saruman.
Yeah. I mean, he still could be Saruman, I guess, but I'm leaning towards Gandalf at this
he's
point.
Gandalf.
Oh, I'm definitely leaning towards Gandalf.
Oh no, after that whole
After the
scene,
node thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
no. After that, I was like, sold.
Yeah.
Sold. You're
Um,
hot. You're a hot Gandalf. I love it.
but they leave to go save him. The Queen Regent leaves to go back to her land to recoup and figure out what the hell's going on over there. Um, Durin and everybody, they're going for the mithril, and he's decided to go for it. Got caught, got yelled at, everything. But then Galadriel finds Hallbrand, and she's like, "Good, you're alive. Let me take you to the Elfin City so they can fix you, and so I can get my giant army because they're coming. We've all seen that they're coming. A lot of us were hurt. Let's go." So they're off on their gala adventure, and that was the end of episode 7, which was a lot. But this next episode has even more jam packed into it.
Mhm.
You can imagine.
Oh,
So
yeah.
going back to the Harfoots, because I just want to say the Galadriel thing really quick. Going back to the Harfoots, we start off with the Coven of Sauron or whatever, telling him, the stranger, that he is Sauron. These are his powers, but they're going to take care of him and like mold him into Sauron, which I believe they could have done. But then this is where the lovely, lovely Harfoots come in with their powers of like running around and being sneaky and everything like that, which I love that they were throwing rocks and tripping
I
and
know.
everything like that and fighting these 3 powerful beings. They're
Yeah.
holding their own on that, which was lovely. And then we see the stranger finally, for the first time, take his goodness that Nori always said that he had and use it to destroy them.
Mhm.
And this is the first time that we've seen him been able to focus his power so well for a cause that he believed in. What did you
Yeah.
think about the whole beginning of that the second episode, Jordyn?
This was amazing. This was like watching the Battle of Hogwarts. This was like watching fucking, you know what I mean? Like Dumbledore versus what's his name? I can't
Voldemort.
Voldemort?
No. Like, yeah, that too. But like this was like watching the battle, right? Like
Oh,
I yeah,
continue.
right. I can't remember. Okay, well, it'll come to me.
Like, I should know this too,
So
but
we'll touch base on that one after a second.
Yeah. And
when we talk about Fantastic Beasts 4, we'll bring it back.
Grindelwald.
Thank you.
oh,
Yes.
good. Okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
so this was like, oh shit, like this is what's going on. And what was interesting is that if like obviously we're all fans, but like it was interesting when sort of, you know, the main, like, which I want her hair, which is like shaved but like bleached, she was like controlling him with the staff. I was like, oh, is that like a little Saruman-y? Like, is that a little Saruman-y Two Towers-esque? Like, I was like, okay. And the guy was like, you know, he was, you know, doing everything that he could to protect you know, the Hardfoots that were trying to trying to help him out. And it was, you know, this whole entire scene, I was at the edge of my seat. And then the minute he picked up and Nori gave him the staff, and all of a sudden they were like, oh, this isn't this one, it's the other one, it's the Ishtar. And I was like, I knew it. I screamed so loud. My dad woke up from a dead sleep. Like, I screamed. I was like, I fucking knew it. And then he said, he was like, I banish you. I do all this shit. And then he basically just obliterated them. And then this evil staff just disintegrated because he used it for good. And then he just sort of realizes that, like, this is who he is, right? And then we find out that, you know, Grandpapa Harfoot basically, you know, got stabbed and is going to die. But, you know, they like that scene, like, was the beginning of the tears, the many tears of this freaking episode for me.
The sunset thing.
I know.
I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. But I think for me, it was just the realization where I was like, I knew it. I knew this is it. And then, you know, later on in the episode when he's talking to Nori and basically talks to her so this is why I was like, these past two episodes were for the fans, because you have the creation of Mordor, you have the establishment of Gandalf, right? Like, who basically is just like, which is why you hear like I like he says the lines along the line of I'm always surprised by the kindness of hobbits, right? Because he knows that these people are just kind, and like he knows that the world changes because of one small individual being having the courage to stand up and, like, you know, go against the evils of the world. And so it was just so beautiful to see that in this episode. And it was just so awesome. I don't know, like I was just fangirling and fanboying out the entire time. I was like, fuck yes, this is exactly what I was watching this for. If you haven't watched, you know, if you've watched the series, you're like, this fucking sucks. Like, this episode summed it up all for you. And if you still hate the whole fucking series after this, you're dumb, because it was so good. It was just so good. So I thought that scene was really well done.
Good. Yeah, no, I completely, everything you said, I am right on top of it with you. Julie, what did you think about all of this?
Yeah, I had a lot of similar thoughts to you, Jordyn. But what you were saying about the one individual has the courage to, like, stand up against all of the evil, like that moment when Nori says you're good, and like it gets to him and he realizes like who he kind of actually is. That moment was like the moment for me. Like, I was just like, yes. And I was like, and that's where I was talking about before. I was like, that's where I knew like he couldn't be Sauron, like, because like even though he didn't know who he was, I think, well, I don't know, this is what I believe. I think Sauron is just innately evil, and like I think there would still be some pokes of evil coming out, if that makes sense, like poking out of him, like even if he wasn't trying to, if it was Sauron. So that was the moment where I was just like, oh, and yeah, it just gave me all the feels. And yeah, and the moment where they watch the sunset together, and then he's watching them kind of realizing like this beautiful little community and relationship that they have. And I was just like, all the feels, all the feels.
Oh, it was so sad. And at that point, I really did fall in love with the grandpa, like Harfoot. Like I really appreciated who he was in his beliefs and everything like that, but how he was passing them on. It was just such a real moment for me. Um,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but now we are moving to the Elfin City because Hallbrand and Galadriel
Oof.
are
Yeah.
back there.
This
But
asshole.
first,
Oh.
first we see Celebrimbor realizing that they didn't get the mithril. Like they
Right.
just don't have it. So they have this little tiny piece they have to figure out something to do with. And that's when they see Galadriel and Halbrand get back in, and Halbrand gets fixed by Elven magic and everything like that. And he seeks out Celebrimbor in his workshop and gives him the thought, why don't you mix it with another ore to
Mhm.
try and create something
Hmm.
that's going to be powerful enough for you to use. So Celebrimbor and everybody bring it to the king, and they're like, we're going to mix this with a very high metal and make a crown that's super powerful for one person. And even when they're talking and everything, Celebrimbor tells the king, and these are his specific words, which I love. Galadriel in the back being like, "Ooh, what?" He says to the king before the king says, "No, I'm sending you all home." He says, "New, it's a new kind of power, not of strength but of spirit, not of flesh but over flesh." And that is the first real instinct that you see Galadriel being like, "Wait, what did you who said that?" And he was like,
Yeah.
one of my workers or whatever. And she was like, but was Hallbrand there? And then she starts her little investigative journey because now she has inklings Hallbrand isn't a good person or who he says he is. And before I'm gonna get into your conversations, we have to hydrate everybody. Chin,
Ah,
chin.
Hi, Jay.
Thank you, Q. We definitely need that. We're talking a lot. But what did you think about this, Julie? Like this whole like big scene of like them coming up with the crown and everything.
Yeah. Well, and that whole moment, yeah, where she was like, not of the flesh, over flesh. And I was like, Adar said that. Adar said that. She's going to like figure it out. Like something's going on here. Something's going on. But I still didn't put two and two together yet at that point. Like I still wasn't like, Halbrand is Sauron. Like I did not figure it out. Like I was thinking like something evil is a brewing here though. And I was like, and then yeah, the crown thing, obviously like the High King wasn't like a fan of it. But then when they were like, we're gonna make something smaller, I got excited because I was like, ooh, I know what that's gonna be. Like, but yeah, I don't know. It was a good like kind of opener because it just kind of set the tone for like, ooh, there's a lot of shit that's gonna go down in this episode. Like, so yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. Jordan, what did you think about this whole like changing of minds of Galadriel, who's so pointed and like, I'm right, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So there was a fan theory that was, going out that Halbrand was Sauron. And I was like, I don't see it because, there was a theory that like, the king that was promised in the Southlands, like basically we don't know who this guy is. We don't know his lineage, right? Like we don't know what's going on. So the minute that there was even a small inkling that she was like, I need to know his history. I need to know he is who he says he is. I was like, oh, this bitch. So then he starts getting really involved in the smithing of the rings or this like the how can they sort of form this, right? And I was like, he seems a little bit too interested in it, and I get that he's interested in smithing, but he recovered very quickly and there was no like explanation of it. And then the minute that Galadriel figures it out, I was like, yep. I was like, I was like, yep, because now we know that Gandalf clearly is not Sauron, and But my thing is this guy went through an entire series, an entire sort of like journey where he didn't show that he has this power until Galadriel's like, I'm gonna fuck you up, and then he's like, oh, okay, here you go, boom. And
Yeah.
so now we understand that this guy might be more powerful than he's let on, right? Like, and maybe he was recovering, obviously, right, from battle. Maybe he was recovering from being, all that stuff. And so we haven't really seen the full potential of Halbrand, aka Sauron. I thought it was necessary. And yeah, I was totally like Julie when they were like, we have to make something smaller, and I was like, don't tease me. Don't tease me. This is what the whole series is about. I was like, don't tease me. And then so that whole sort of like moment when they're like making the three rings, I was like, awesome, amazing, beautiful, right? And obviously they don't look like, the Lord of the Rings ones, but I think, this is definitely something to be aware of, because as we know, within Lord of the Rings mythology, like one of them obviously goes to Galadriel, the other one goes to Elrond, and then the other one goes to Gandalf of the three Elvish rings. So I'm going to be invested in how Gandalf gets a hold of one of them, right? And like if they're just like willingly give it to, the Ishtar, if he comes and, like we've established, like he's established, like basically like Ishtar in your language means wise one or wizard, right? And I was like, it's Gandalf. He's the wizard. He's the gray wizard, right? Like that's always so. This definitely tied in and like melded together a lot of suspicions and a lot of sort of theories that were playing on in this entire series. And I'm really happy that once the rings were made, we kind of like got an established motive for, what Sauron is doing. And then that final scene where he's walking towards Mount Doom in Mordor, just kind of like was like shit, like it's setting the scene for season 2. So
I did love that last scene with Halbrand when he comes up and it changes and it says Southlands and then changes to Mordor. I love that. But what I have to find funny through all of this, once that Galadriel figured out that he was Sauron, one, give it to her, because I love that he was doing that whole mind thing and she was keeping up with him.
Like, yeah, because she's a bad bitch.
Exactly.
Yeah, she is. And she was like, I kicked him out. He's gone. Like, I loved it. But I do have to find it funny because she was after Sauron and to try to get rid of evil. And then when she found him in Numenor, she is the one who brought him back to all of this. So, like
dramatic irony.
The call was coming from inside the house the whole time.
Like, not pointing fingers, Galadriel, you kind of caused all this.
I know.
Yeah, she didn't know though. She had no clue.
Nobody knew. He kept it hidden very well.
But she was so determined, and it was right under her nose the whole time, which is just such a slap in the face for her. But I'm excited to see how she comes back in him, because she's pissed off.
Oh yeah.
But like you guys did say, we do see finally the creation of the three rings. Beautiful rings, by the way. So these are the first 3 rings that are coming into play, the elfin rings. Next, we do have the dwarfen rings. I'm hoping the dwarfen rings, because I don't want to see the rings of men get made. Then we have the rings of men, and then we have the one ring to rule them all. So my thought about this is, because there is the runway ring to rule them all, and they can't figure out a way to make the mithril just work on its own. Does Halbrand or Sauron figure out a way once he gets to Mount Doom to melt down pure mithril, and that's why he can control all the others? Like, is that a thought? What do you guys think? How this ended, how the season ended? What are you guys' thoughts, feelings? Where do you hope the second season goes? We'll start with you on this one, Julie.
Well, yeah, I want to see how the other rings are made. I actually have always been fascinated by the whole, like, the 3 rings for the elves, the 7 rings for the dwarves, the 1 ring to rule them all, and then what was so 9 for man. I'm really curious how that all comes about, because I'm not as familiar with like the deep lore or whatever. So like I hope we get to see like that whole story arc. And I want to see like the journey with Nori and Gandalf, like because I think that's going to be really fun, and like it'll be an adventure. Um and yeah, and like I was saying before, I want to see what happens to the Harfoots, but I also want to see, I'm also wondering if like, I wonder if the Dwarf King ever comes around and maybe like ends up sharing some of the mithril. I don't know. I mean, at this point, I'm thinking no, but like you never know. Like I feel like the mithril. I feel like that storyline isn't ended. I feel like there's something gonna be more with that. So yeah, and
Well, the
then
elves do get some
what's that?
because there's the elves do get some because there's that whole mithril like chain that
Oh
Frodo
right,
wears through the
yeah.
entire
So yeah,
Lord of the Rings film.
so there has to be more to that story, and obviously we want to see more of the dwarves because we love Durin and Disa, and like I want to see more of their relationship with Elrond. 'Cause hopefully he'll be able to come back and um and they can hang some more because I'll pay money for more of that. Like um but yeah, I don't know, like I just want to see more. Like there were so many cliffhangers the end of this season, and like but it's pretty cool to see like it's sort of evolving into the Lord of the Rings world that we kind of all know and love from the movies, like slowly, like we're starting to see things that we recognize, and I love that kind of like transition into that. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, no, right there with you. Jordan, what are your thoughts at how this ended and where do you hope it goes?
So one of the things I did want to point out is that when the king sealed up the Mithril mines, we did get a taste of the Balrog, and I was screaming. I was like, yes, because you see it in the trailers, right, of the series, and
I almost forgot about that. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, you see it, and then you see the leaf that was cured by the Mithril, right? Because we know that was what was going on, and then as the leaf falls, we see that there's just a torrential, gargantuan amount of mithril below. But is this the ore that basically gets the dwarves to delve too deep, right? Like into that, and then basically they get obliterated by the Balrog, right? And so I'm excited to see what that is like moving forward. Yeah, I think with the forging of the rings, obviously we have our first start of, the sort of the ring war saga, right? Like how that sort of plays out. I'm excited to see how the 9 rings of men are made because they all turn into ring wraiths after everything.
That's right.
And so like I want to know who they are and like how they get established, right? Like what's going on with that. I want to know what dwarves, right, are responsible for their rings, and how they dig too deep, and like basically who gets destroyed. Is it Doran that basically like destroys the dwarven kingdom, right? Like who knows. I think I have been waiting this entire season to see Galadriel come into her like powerful self where she can banish Sauron to Mordor again, like where she's just fucking at 5,000, right? Like at Dragon Ball Z, I'm at 5,000, and I can't wait to see that transition for her. I also just can't wait to see how Numenor falls, right? Like, and to see how everything else plays out in there. So I think it ended pretty well. I think it ended at a point where it was very nostalgic for me, because it's almost like how the Lord of the Rings movies ended, where especially like the Two Towers, where it was like singing the ring song, and then this last episode it sang the entire like lore of like the rings, and I was like, this reminds me of Lord of the Rings. And so I feel like it was beautiful, and I feel like it ended the way that it should have. Like it ended like a Lord of the Rings movie. It ended just like we needed it to. So I'm really excited to see what's
I
coming
agree
up.
with that. And also just shouting out the music of this whole series because it has been perfect.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Song gave me chills. I was like, oh, this is a perfect way to end it. Like,
see, okay, so I enjoyed the music throughout the entire series as well. That song, however much I liked what it was talking about, I feel like it could have been composed a different way.
Oh, really?
I felt like they could have changed some things and made it like lighter and more like epic. Not it kind of sounded like somebody did it on like garage band for me. It didn't sound
Oh,
as
see,
perfect as
I don't know that I feel that way, but to
It
each his own.
ended. It ended
I
very.
like the song, but like I felt like it just wasn't as produced as it should have
So
Okay, that's
people in
fair.
the audience can correct me if I'm wrong, but it that was the same song that ended the Two Towers.
been. Is it?
But it was sung by Bjork. In
Maybe,
that one.
actually, maybe that's why I don't like it.
Yeah, and so if you go to I think it's the Two Towers. If you go to the end of the movie and you watch the credits, it starts out that way. And so the reason
Mm.
why I was like, this is so nostalgic is because that's how Two Towers sort of ended. But the song is different in a way where it's like, okay, like Bjork singing it, fine, whatever. But this one I was just like, whole like I was already on a high, right? Like I'm already on a high. Gandalf's established. We're already established the rings. And I was like, oh my god, this ended like a movie. And so and to be fair, every episode in the Rings of Power is a small movie. It's like
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
small, you know.
So-
So
My hopes for the next season, now that we have to wait, we don't know how long, but we have to wait for the next season.
Right.
My hope for this, I'm really intrigued to see, because correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't Galadriel get like excommunicated from everybody, and that's why she's in that part of the woods that she's in when Frodo meets her and everything like that? Because she's just they're like, you fucked up, go. Isn't that why she's there?
I don't know if I
no,
can't
so there's two elvish kingdoms when we come to the Fellowship of the Ring.
Mm-hmm.
Or in the Hobbit. One of them is Lothlorien.
remember.
And then the other one is where the other elvish guy where he basically fought Smaug, and like he like uses illusory magic to look normal, and that's Legolas's dad.
Yeah.
So there's two
Mm.
kingdoms. We don't visit Galadriel's kingdom until Fellowship of the Ring. The first one we visit in The Hobbit, or they visit in The Hobbit. But Galadriel is in it because she is like the queen, or like the woman of the woods. And so like in that time, the Elvish kingdom that's established in the Rings of Power doesn't exist anymore, because they basically get obliterated in the War of the Rings. And so once that's established, these two split up. And they become two separate like kingdoms within two separate woods.
Okay, so I'm excited to see that. But I'm also excited to see like the building of Mordor and like the Black Wall and everything like that. And I'm excited to see a little bit more of what we've come to know get created. And that's where my excitement is. But we have reached the end of the season. I enjoyed having you guys. I mean, Jordyn, you were here for most of the season. I started off, you took over, and now we're coming back around. So I much appreciate you guys being on here today. But that's all we have time for today. Shout out to my guests again. Jordyn, go ahead and let people out there know where they can find you on socials or life or anything.
And all the other stuff. So I am on Instagram. It's City of Stars 13. I play a lot of video games on Xbox. This is a new one. I just said it. But my gamer tag is Expecto Bellonum, capital E, and then Expecto is a 0, and then Bellonum is capitalized with a B. Find me on there. Add me. I play Overwatch. Overwatch 2 now. And I play Dead by Daylight and a lot of other Apex multiplayer games. So add me. Let's be friends. Let's chat. Let's have a good time. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Nice. Thank you. And then Jolie, go ahead and let the folks out there know where they can find you.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Raelyn, and I am also on Twitter, which I am trying to be a little bit more active on, at Silent Caffeine. And I forgot to mention last time, I have a TikTok too at JRaelady. So it's J.R.R, that's my middle name, and then lady. Yeah, because why not? All the kids are doing it.
Everybody's doing it.
Yeah, it's true. Not just kids. There's quite a variety on TikTok these days.
Oh yeah. But thank you so much for being here, and thank you for both of you for coming on with me for this journey. But for everybody out there, you can listen to the show on Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, all of our platforms really, at Nom Talk Network. And stay tuned for our next show, which is tomorrow. They are going to be reviewing the new Hellraiser that just aired on Hulu. So that's very exciting. But until then, I'm your host, Erric Ramirez. You can find me at Heartless7 on all socials, TikTok, gaming systems, everything. But until next time, have an honorific day.